Coming up on this edition of Two Right Turns, a Clemson football podcast, we're hopping on the sticks and talking all things EA Sports college football. Joining us are guests Ben Haumiller, principal game designer at EA Sports, and Andrew Bender, brand partnerships manager, as well as Matt Camp from Clemson Athletics, talking about Clemson's representation in last year's game, as well as the new one dropping this July. The new episode of Two Right Turns starts now.
They take those two right turns, and when they make the final turn, they can begin to hear the crowd and the noise of the open end of the stadium.
Here it is, the most exciting 25 seconds in college football.
Hey everyone, and welcome inside Studio C of the Clemson Athletics Branding Institute for another episode of Two Right Turns, a Clemson football podcast. I'm your host, Ross Taylor, and I am joined today by three special guests as we take it outside of the Clemson Athletics Branding Institute to the digital Death Valley. So we've got two guests joining us virtually and one in studio. Let's start with our guests on Zoom. If you wouldn't mind introducing your name and why you're joining us.
Yeah, I'm Andrew Bender. I work at EA. I'm on our college football team on the marketing side of things. So I handle our relationships with all of the universities in our beloved game.
And I'm Ben Haumiller, principal game designer on EA Sports College Football. And yeah, all I do is college football. So here I am to talk about it.
And then joining us in studio?
Yeah, my name is Matthew Camp. I work here with Clemson Ventures, really helping oversee the social and digital initiatives that we're fortunate enough to embark on here at Clemson.
Yeah, so I think the theme is pretty clear, and it's incredible how far we've come in 12 months' time. Just thinking back to this moment 12 months ago, I actually fired up College Football 25 recently and just kind of remembered the sheer joy of watching it load up last year after, as we were talking about before the show, 11 years in the wilderness, right, Ben? So before we even get going, I mean, we're talking EA Sports College Football 25 and the upcoming EA Sports College Football 26. What was the reaction to College Football 25 like? Because I think we thought we knew, but seeing it was something different, was it not?
I mean, I can't tell you how blown away I was by the reaction of fans. Like, as someone who worked on the old NCAA game for a decade and has kind of been a fabric of this game going back to, NCAA 04 was the last one that I wasn't a part of. So I've kind of grown up with this game in a way of my career, and I lost it for 11 years, just like we all did. And so to see this thing come back, I think there were true believers like myself that knew it would be big. But then you just see the reaction of everybody and all the leaks that were happening, everyone just diving into every small little detail. Like, oh, there's going to be this in the game. There's going to be that. And like, they were so excited about the minutia of everything that kind of let us know that we were onto something good. And then the game comes out and we start to see the reaction of everybody. And we're watching the server numbers of players online just climb and climb and climb. And man, it was so rewarding to see such a great return for a game that's been gone for so long.
Yeah, I think the numbers speak for themselves. It's been well documented that this is the best-selling sports game of all time in North America. So the public wanted it, and it's been awesome to see that, but also really cool to talk to all of the schools who are in the game, how excited they are to showcase their players and their programs, being able to have, all these little unique traditions like you guys have and all of the other schools have, being shown to a whole new audience for some people. We have a lot of folks who, they're like, I'm not a fan of whatever school, but I saw this one thing about them and I tried them out and now I'm like fully invested in them. It's been awesome to see, and talking to players where they're saying, I grew up playing this game and then it was gone and it was kind of a dream of mine to be in the game. And the fact that it's here, this is so cool. Like, this is how I connect with my dad, or I connect with my brother or friends back home. It's just really cool to see how like sports and games bring the world together.
Well, it's funny how much, I mean, obviously it's entertainment, but there's almost like an educational element to it. And I think one of the great examples was you all just dropped the trailer for 26, and one of the things that's been added to Clemson Entrance this year is the team getting off the buses. And obviously this podcast, Two Right Turns, is named after the journey the buses take around the stadium from the locker room to the hill. And I think it was an Oregon State fan or somebody said, hey, why are they showing like a team getting off the bus in full pads? Like, what are we doing here? And then the comments, the people just went after him. And he's like, hey, I learned something today. And so it's so funny how much the game is a platform to educate people on all the unique and different things about all the different teams in college football. Is that fair?
It's pretty wild. You've got people out there defending EA on the internet. Like, when is that going to ever happen, right? Like, that's amazing for me to see. So yeah, no, you definitely have seen that the educational piece of the game coming through of understanding that there's 136 schools, and you on a Saturday you might watch a handful of games, but you're not going to catch every tradition or every element that makes all of these schools unique. And we had the mantra that every school is someone's favorite, and so we really take that to heart when we're building everything out. And so in that first year, we try to get to everything we were able to get to. But this isn't ever, this is a list that does not end. So now coming back to the second year of it, adding things like the bus, which is an iconic element of the Clemson runout, to have that in a game, to add to touching Howard Druck and then running down the hill, and then also too having the hill close and actually have fans fill that hill in. Because if you remember from the old game, we weren't able to do that in the old game and build out the technology, to be able to have that element come in. So now you've got fans filling in the hill, and it feels more authentic and feels more organic. And we've added new features like the trophy room. You want to talk about a history book piece there? You can not only win trophies and collect everything that you've won in your dynasty or your road to glory, but if you're winning a rivalry trophy, for example, let's say you might not know that Clemson and NC State have a Textile Bowl tradition, and there's a rivalry trophy that goes along with that. Now you can actually earn that trophy, and there's a whole description about it. You can learn the history of that trophy and how it came to be. There's also a record book as well that goes back and shows every conference winner and every national championship winner, every award winner, going back to the late 1800s. So we're really telling the history of the sport here. But then as you're playing Dynasty, you're going to wind up, as you going through season after season, it's going to track everything you've earned and won that way too. So it's kind of a look back, but also too an ability in the game to look forward.
Yeah, you talked about building out the history a little bit. I won't volunteer where you are an alumnus of. However, I think if you go back through the ACC history page, I think you'll see our current place of employment and the place we love, and your former university as well, dotting and littering that ACC page pretty heavy. So we mentioned your roles, but I mean, we could probably spend an entire hour on it, so I don't want to hit all of that. But what exactly do your roles entail?
Yeah, so I handle, like I said, I handle our relationship with all the universities specifically from a marketing and content perspective. So we have our licensing team that works with all the licensing departments across the country to make sure that we can actually get the schools in the game. And then I work with schools to figure out how we can get new content into the game, how we can create content about their program utilizing the game as a platform, how we can bring their fans together using our game and finding that common thread of football fandom, tying it with real world, digital world, all those wonderful things.
Yeah, and from my side, in the development side of the house, as a principal game designer, my responsibilities are primarily over Dynasty and Road to Glory, our two major career modes. And with that, it's really kind of figuring out every year, what are you going to do to really build the world of college football, and then to build the elements that make those modes so unique and so special? So if you're in Dynasty, what is recruiting going to look like? I work with my designers to determine how recruiting or the transfer portal, or paying attention to things like the potential 16-team playoff with automatic qualifiers, and it's going to be 4 for the SEC and 4 for the Big Ten, and 2 for the ACC, 2 for the Big 12, or is it going to be a 5+7 model, or all those different ones under the sun? We kind of pay attention to everything and kind of absorb it and take it all in and determine how we're going to gamify those things to make it authentic, but also still fun, because at the end of the day, you still are making a video game, so you want it to be entertaining and have a good time, but our calling card is our authenticity, so we want to build that in.
Yeah, I imagine you got to meet somewhere in the middle, because you don't want it to feel like the billable hours that all the lawyers are putting in trying to figure out what's going on right now.
Andrew, billable hours, and so we're trying to figure out how we're going to handle the NIL piece. It's such a moving thing that even with the House just settling recently, we're not sure what the appeals are going to look like. So yeah, we're trying to figure out our place in that.
I can only imagine. Andrew, you talked about the relationship that you have with the schools, and I imagine one of the guys you have on relative speed dial is the one sitting to my right. And Matt, what is your role specifically here at Clemson, and then how is that tied into the relationship with EA Sports?
Yeah, so here at Clemson, I have the pleasure of overseeing our Clemson Tigers social channel, and with that comes a lot of collaboration around our bigger initiatives. And so I remember very early on in 2024 when the planning calls and really the introduction for a lot of the member schools with EA was taking place, and seeing Andrew now in Zoom is a familiar territory, because that's how we first got introduced with one another. And from there, it's really just been ideating and collaborating with Andrew, his great team, but then also the great folks we have here at Clemson around how can we make a fan enjoy the game while playing as Clemson. And I think it's very easy for me in some regards, because that is a main reason as to why I am even here in Clemson is NCAA 14. I'm from New Jersey originally. I remember seeing the famous video that ESPN and ABC did of following the bus around the corners and making those 2 right turns. I saw that. I said, I want to set Clemson as my default team. And so I did. And ever since then, I've been hooked on Clemson. And so now getting a chance to work with Andrew throughout the year, trying to identify what are the key moments that we can integrate the game naturally and then try to activate to just grow the fandom, grow the affinity, and grow our brand and their brand in conjunction with one another.
So, Matt, you're telling us a little bit about your origin story, or at least a tie to Clemson. And to me, this game, going back even before the dark period, so to speak, this game felt like a love letter from people who loved college football to people who loved college football. And so I'm just curious to know, what are y'all's origin stories in terms of your college football fandom?
Mine's not the greatest. So I was born in Michigan, grew up in the Chicago area my whole life. And when I was in elementary school, I had all these friends that were Northwestern fans, Wisconsin, Notre Dame, U of I, all these schools, and I didn't want to be like them. But I didn't pay any attention. I'm the first person in my family to go to college. None of my family really paid attention to sports much, and they were really kind of more into like baseball. But I loved football, and I just loved being a little bit different. And so I go, oh, yeah, the Michigan one. And my friend goes, which one? And I didn't know there were like 2. And so I go, the blue one. And that started my fandom of University of Michigan as a 6-year-old, 7-year-old. And it kind of stuck. And I don't want to date myself a ton, but that was right when a certain quarterback out of Michigan was starting to kind of cement himself in the NFL history books. And so it happened to be a good bandwagon to hop on. And I just kind of continued that. But as I've gotten older, and definitely as I've worked with more and more schools, you start falling in love with like these little aspects from all of these different schools. And you're like, oh man, am I truly a like diehard fan of this one school? And I just love like a little bit about everybody. And I think that's kind of what's happened across the past couple of years is I'm like, oh wow, like I had lived in Austin for a couple of years, and I like really started liking that burnt orange for some reason. I don't know, it just kind of grew on you. And then moving down here, like going to UCF games are super fun, and like, you know, you find yourself kind of getting attached to a lot of different schools.
Yeah, I think for me, you know, growing up here in Orlando, you know, it's funny, they always talk about Florida, that the further south you go, the more north you get. And Orlando is kind of in that middle rung of that. But it still is, you know, it still is the deep South. And so I was baptized in the religion of college football at an early age and have always loved college football. It's always been my favorite sport. And so it was one of the things growing up. I played sports and I played video games, but I somehow turned this into a career where I was able to do both of them together. But yeah, I've always been a huge college football fan. I did go to Florida State. That's how I learned about the job. It was, we used to do a tournament where we'd go around the country to try to crown the best player, you know, in the nation. And the 2 best players, they'd have the regionals and they'd go and meet together at the national championship game. And I happened to go to the Tallahassee tournament that was going on and wound up talking to somebody and found out they made the game down here in Orlando. And so it was kind of a summer job that turned into a career. But, you know, you want to talk about dating yourself. Those are back in the Woody Dantzler days. That's how far back we go as far as when I was doing that stuff. And, you know, just a huge fan of the sport. And so to me, that's one thing that I love about, you know, being here and working on this is I get to have the love and passion I have for the thing I love the most, which is college football, and be able to put that into a video game. But then I look around at the rest of this team and they're built the same way. I think that's one of the magic things that we have is this is a hardcore college football fan team. Like we watch every game possible. Like there's our Slack channel about college football is hilarious because it's everybody just rushing when the news comes out of anything, even the most minute detail, to make sure that everyone else knows about it. And we're all talking about it. And like, it's just a constant 365 conversation about college football that we live and breathe and try to pour that into the game.
Yeah, we had a couple of people come in on tours and they're walking around and you just get that these are college football fans who happen to make a game. And that was something that they came out there, like the passion from the dev side, especially like Ben's team, it is tangible. Every single desk is decked out completely with their team's college gear and posters and all these things. And that like you said, it's at the core of everything that is done on that side. So you can just feel it. It's amazing.
Ben, one of the things you talked about early on is this idea that you all had that every team is somebody's favorite team, right? And it's, it seems like so much of the first year, at least from my side, it looked like it was about building the environments and making sure that what's now 136, I guess it was 134 at the time, of these environments all felt unique and special and true and authentic to those places. I mean, how important is that at the college level? And I just think back to two of our students, Alana and Max, sending however many hundreds or thousands of photos it was of every single inch of depth. And it's not just a big wide shot. It's all the way up to the handrails in the middle of the upper deck on the 30-yard line. Y'all wanted to know about it. Why is that so important to y'all?
Yeah, first off, let me just say, we asked and you delivered as far as the request for assets and photos and everything possible. I don't remember the exact number, but it was in the thousands of images sent our way of these high resolution shots of every angle, every aspect of the stadium. But it wasn't just a dump of all those. They took the time to went through and put them in individual folders. So it was so easy for we could find everything we wanted at a second's notice. And our art director was just like, this is the gold standard. This is what we want to see at everybody. It was so great to be able to get those things. It was also really funny too, is how we could leverage some pieces from the past. So Howard's Rock, for example, we were able to leverage the asset we used to use back in the old NCAA 14 days for this new game, because the source asset was high enough resolution that it still looked great. And so that was one of the first pieces that we had finished, was that Howard's Rock, and we were able to use that as a showpiece to show the visual fidelity of what the game looked like in 14 versus what it looks like now. And so, it's through the help of Clemson and schools like that to be able to really, make this game as authentic as it can be. And honestly, too, it's a big reason why we're even back, is going back to when we first put in kind of a pilot program for college in Madden. We were doing, there are 10 schools you can go through, and you can kind of work your way from college to the NFL in superstar mode. And we selected 10 schools and we were working with them, but a lot of schools were hesitant to work with us because we were still in the dark ages of how can we work with making a video game without having players in them and not infringing on player rights and all of those. And honestly, Clemson was the first school to step up and say, we want to do this with you guys. And they were the first one. And you kind of have a school in your back pocket. You can say, hey, everybody else, Clemson's on board. Are you on board too? Let's go. And it really got the ball rolling to get those schools to sign up to be in the game, and then prove out to schools that we can do this in a way that if we don't have player rights, we'll be able to make it without players and be fine. But if we do have players, man, we can really make some magic here. So, it's that relationship we have with schools, and specifically Clemson here. I mean, that's why we're talking today in some way, shape, and form, is because way back a few years ago, Clemson had the foresight to say, this is something that matters. This is maybe a way we can get the game back. And so here we are.
Yeah, and I think that relationship, that friendship, that partnership, whichever word you choose, remains a priority for us, and we remain proud of our association with EA Sports, and that has even transcended this game. I mean, you can even go back to the couple years MVP was doing college baseball, and Doug Kingsmore Stadium was represented. Obviously, the college basketball franchise as well. So, as you all worked to get all these different iconic little traditions and pieces into the game, one of the things I was fascinated to see last year, y'all built a replica hill to help recreate Clemson's interest coming down the hill. I mean, what was that process like? And it may be a better question for somebody else on the team, but also, why was that so important for you all to create so faithfully?
We have a huge motion capture studio up in Vancouver, and that's where all this stuff is done. And those guys take it very seriously of trying to recreate exactly what we want to see in the game. So if you have a scene where you're in a car, they're going to build a car to scale to have your characters sit in it when they're in the motion capture ping pong ball suits to be able to capture those things. And when we're building out trophies, they're to the scale and roughly to the weight, so that when the characters are holding them, it looks realistic and they're not just holding up a 75-pound trophy with one arm like it weighs nothing. And so with something like as iconic as the hill and running down the hill, we built a 2-story ramp for our players and our actors in the suits to run down, because you need to have that look of what a player runs like when they're running down a hill. Your running motion is different than just running on a flat surface, and just have characters do different animations and things to celebrate coming down that hill. So yeah, it was important to us for that authenticity of making sure it looked like people were actually running down the hill, because when we captured it, they truly were, but in the sound stage, and it was all plywood and the ping pong ball suit. So it didn't look anything like it would look like when it actually showed up in the game. But to get it right, you had to take those steps and make it as authentic as possible from the start to the very beginning, to the end.
So one of the things you mentioned earlier is you're trying to recreate all this. I mean, you've got 134 now, 136 different schools all trying to get everything in. And you know, Andrew, I know you've got a piece of that as well with your relationship with Matt. And so, Matt, I want to ask you, because I've seen the spreadsheet. I've contributed to the spreadsheet. I mean, the amount of feedback that we've provided to this group on things very large, all the way up to buses coming around the hill, to like what would seemingly be very minor things. I mean, what is the process of putting together that detailed list of feedback we provide?
Yeah, the process is time, and really just going frame by frame in the game. And so this all started back in October of last year, starting to look forward to what is College Football 26 going to look like, and how can we improve upon the already great product that we had. And so one night I went through and just to really start getting things going with where are things where we can definitely improve, because even our stadium has changed since the game was released. So making sure that we were equipping the EA team with the right photos, the right assets, the right descriptors to help make their development as easy as possible. But it took me about 4 hours of just going frame by frame in terms of gameplay videos that I was watching on YouTube, and going through the game itself, and just going through and looking at every little detail, everything down to, I think probably my favorite detail that I noticed was that the stadium lights had an extra row in the game as compared to what we had in stadium. And so just looking at that and really taking great pride in how our stadium is represented and showcased. And then after that, it's going out and taking photos and putting some good music, walk around Memorial Stadium and capture all the beauty that there is. And then again, like Ben said, put it in folders, good labels, and make sure that it's shared with everyone to really make sure we're not missing anything in this game, and trying to provide all the best feedback that we can. And I will go and say 7,000 photos was the original submission to EA, 7,000 photos. And a big kudos to our guy, Brian Hennessy, in the athletic communications department. Unbelievable organization, attention to detail, and again, the students that helped them. Just an unbelievable effort on their behalf.
It was such a huge lift for us because, you know, I was here fortunate enough to be back in the first time when we went around to the country and went to every school ourselves, and had it was one of our guys, Tom Renato, who was a Clemson grad, and another guy got in an RV and just traveled the country and took photos of every single stadium. It was a kind of just a long whirlwind tour. I mean, we weren't able to do that same thing this year or for this time. So it was, you know, it was so helpful for us to have schools go and be able to do all this collection for us. So we did not need to have someone traveling all around the country to capture these. And you know your school better than we'll ever know it. So make sure that we're getting the stuff directly from the source, so that we're not guessing or just kind of going off of a couple of shots we saw off the internet. No, please give us all those details. We'll consume everything, all 7,000 photos of them, and turn those into what you see in the game.
Well, I really don't want to beat a dead horse, and this is for both of you, Ben maybe on the programming side, but Andrew for sure on the relationship side. This is so different because unlike your Madden product, there's not just 32 teams, and you know, especially in that league where everything to an extent is very centralized to the league office or to the Players Association. You're dealing with 136 very unique, very separate brands and 136 relationships y'all have to manage. How important are those school relationships? And y'all touched on it a little bit, but the relationship y'all have had with Clemson, how is that, do you think, helped the product?
Yeah, I mean, the relationships are everything. Being able to, have someone on speed dial at each and every school is so important. It leads to there being more accuracy within the game. It leads to us being able to have the harder conversations of, hey, this is wrong in the game. Like, can we try to get this fixed? Like, is this something we can prioritize? And with the schools that we do have those, super deep relationships with, we're able to identify what those potential problems are way in advance. We plan against them. We're like, hey, here are all the, like how you guys had that spreadsheet. Here are all the things that we can see in the game that could be updated, or here are some things we plan on doing in the coming year. And that future proofing, it's so trust-based, and you need to have that relationship with schools like college, especially. things are pretty tight to the chest for the most part. Most programs, they're not even wanting to share what uniforms they're going to wear until 2 days before the game happens. So you try to find out changes to a stadium a few months in advance. That's really hard to do. And so being able to develop that trust with all of our schools and let them be able to not only earn our trust by us providing them assets and everything early, but us earning their trust by them, sending us their plans for their stadium in 6 months in advance, a year in advance, or updates to jerseys or brand new jerseys, things like that. It's just, there's so much built on that foundation of trust.
You recently came by Clemson. Was that your first trip to Clemson? And if so, what were your impressions?
This is my second trip. We've got friends that thankfully are now on the Clemson football staff. And so my wife lived with his wife for a while in college. And so we make an effort to go to all of at least one game per year at all the different schools he's been at. So whether that's NAIA, D2, all the way up to Penn State last year, Clemson this year. We make an effort to go up and visit them. And she also has friends over in Greenville. So we last year went to the NC State game. We had a Coca-Cola tailgate tour that we were doing. And so thankfully I was able to come see that tour that we did with Coca-Cola and then go to the game. But then this year, definitely plan on going to a couple to go, support our friends, but also just experience Clemson, Greenville, everywhere in that kind of area in South Carolina. It's just such a beautiful place. The campus was amazing. The stadium was awesome. And so it's just it's a special place.
Ironically, you mentioned the Coca-Cola tailgate tour, and that was designated as the College Football 25 game of the week. And so I think what we found, and I want to ask Matt about this, is that like the hunger and thirst for content around this game didn't die at launch. It carried all the way through the football season. There were so many opportunities. By sheer happenstance of the timing, we got to help with player rating reveals all the way to in-season, the Clemson-NC State game and that tour. Kind of went into the joint promotion of all that, Matt.
Yeah, we definitely have to go back to the player reveal of ratings because I think that was an awesome experience. But a lot of what we've talked about today centers around collaboration, and the game against NC State was nothing short of that. It was really collaboration to a T, and would love Andrew to chime in on this as well. But when you look at what went into that week, it all starts early on with the announcement of that designation. And then coming into it, one of the big things that we had on our radar for that game was 800 wins for the program. And so you want to talk about trust? Well, we were trusting EA with that information weeks in advance and giving them time to prep assets and create assets. And then ultimately, result went in our favor and we were able to activate on those assets. And so I think a lot of what goes into the promotion of the game, creating content around the game and collaborating with EA in this aspect is just trying to really hone in on what are our fans talking about around the game, and then how can we contribute to that conversation. And so, our first content around College Football 25 came out in February of 2024 with our statement that we are in the game, and then you trickle into game posters going up around town in Clemson and just the absolute buzz that caused. And then again, now I'm going to turn the question on to you. We're in the cab. We're doing media days. Ross, take us through, because it was ultimately Ross's idea to do the player reveals in the way that we did. Give us a little insight as to what all went into that.
That was really fortunate because I don't think it was planned this way. Andrew, would you know this, maybe an hour's worth of heads up, hey, the player ratings are coming out in an hour or two, something like that. I see a nod. And so we were fortunate because it was in the middle of mandatory workout, so a bunch of the guys were in the building, fortunately, and it was our CU showcase, which is when we gather all of our photo and video assets that we use for marketing and social media and graphics and everything throughout the course of the year. And so we get the heads up, hey, Barrett Carter and Peter Woods are both going to be on this. I think it was top 100 is what was getting revealed.
Top 100 players, yeah.
Yep. And so we got those numbers, and we had the blank jerseys. I was like, oh man, I know for sure Barrett's going to lose his mind over this because he was so excited about being in the game. I think Peter was too, but I knew Barrett would be. So we went and grabbed the blank jerseys, and they knew the photo shoots were going on. So we texted him, found it. I think we found him in the training room, Barrett, man, like I need you to come with me for just like 5 minutes. And he was terrified out of it. He's like, what are we doing? Like in the video that we posted, you can see him walk in the studio like why y'all got cameras? What is going on? And he holds up the 94, and we ask like, hey, do you know why you're holding? He's like, no. It was like, what's coming out next week? And he lost his mind. And to his credit, this was not edited to make him look good. We asked, all right, there's one other player who made the 90 club. Who do you think it is? And he only needed one guess. And he said Peter Woods. So Peter came in. It was the same way. It was blown away to be a 90. That 90 means something. These guys know it.
Yeah. Big time.
So yeah, that was a lot of fun. We got really fortunate on the timing on that. But again, it was proof. Like obviously the consumer excitement spoke for itself the way it sold, as both of you mentioned. But and y'all can speak on this a little bit as well. The excitement for the players to be in the game cannot be lost.
First time ever. First time we've ever had active college players in a video game. Like just such a monumental thing to be able to say, and also see them show up and see the participation too. I think that was one of the big questions we had coming into this was, cool, we can make an offer for kids to sign up and be in the game, but how many are we going to have? Are we going to get, every player? Are we going to get 20% of the players? Like, what are we going to get? And then all of a sudden the floodgates start opening up and you start seeing those names coming in of everybody signing up to be in. And you start seeing them start to fill out the roster. I mean, the first time, I pop in the game for someone who's been working on this as long as I have and seeing those names in there, like it's one of those just like moments where you're going to catch your breath. You're just like, wait a second, like that, is that supposed to even be in there? It didn't feel real. But no, it made all
you didn't have to pay somebody for a memory card for it.
Correct. Yeah. And all those guys that were at the cottage industry of trading around memory cards, man, those are just so funny, the things that we used to do back in the day. But yeah, it's so amazing to see those players in. And also too, the reaction that they have of being rated for the first time in a video game. Sure, they get their Madden ratings if they make the NFL, but this is a huge deal. This is also too, I think one of my favorite parts was these players who they were like in elementary school, middle school when the game went away, maybe even less than that. And now all of a sudden here it is, and they remember playing it as a kid and they loved having it there, and now it's back and they're in it. Like it's just been so great to see the joy in their faces just by being in the game and having it back.
You want to talk about joy, Russ? I think you can also speak to this. I was in the facility the day that the game came out. The amount of excitement, the amount of joy, it was unbelievable to see just how ready these guys were to play the game and really see themselves in the game. I thought that was just such a cool thing to be a fly on the wall and witness their excitement as they moved throughout the facility.
Yeah, it was a tangible buzz, and there was a line for the sticks, so to speak, down in the players' lounge that day, where the early access code had gone in on the PS5 down there. Real quick, we will dive into College Football 26 here coming up, but we need to take a quick pit stop, courtesy of our friends at Darlington Raceway. So I've got a couple just real quick hitter type questions, and I'm curious to get y'all's feedback. Favorite sports video game other than ones you've worked on?
Ben has worked on all of them, but no, I think this might be a little bit sacrilegious, but I actually loved the NFL 2K game back with Terrell Owens on the cover. It was probably the first new game I ever bought for sports games, and then I had the March Madness game with Derrick Rose on the cover. That was, I can't even remember the year, which kills me, but that was being a Chicago guy, like you see one of your own on the cover, you're like, okay, I gotta get that one.
I mean, Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, still probably my favorite game of all time, because I am an old man. And even on the NES, the Little League World Series, I will put my hand up and say one of the best players in the world at that. If anyone wants to challenge me, I can still probably beat just about anyone. But in modern times, MLB The Show does a phenomenal job. I love the depth they do there and how they really, you can tell that is a team that loves the sport that they're reproducing. I think you can really tell in a lot of games. You can see that, in NBA 2K. They love basketball, and they do a great job with that. You can see that with our Madden team. They love the NFL. You can see that passion pour through, and I think that's one thing, I'm going to be always biased that I'm a college guy through and through, but that's what I kind of look for with games now is, can you see the passion of the developers? Do they love and understand the sport, and are they doing right by it? And so I love seeing that when I can see it through other games too.
Well, and I will say this, shout out to the PGA Tour team over at EA Sports. That was actually before, obviously we knew College Football 25 was coming out, but seeing the screenshots and videos and everything from the PGA Tour product that they had for this current generation, next gen, I don't know what we're calling it at this point. was tremendous. So shout out to them. Next one, most dominant video game athlete of all time. You might have hit on one already with your answer.
I think I might throw a curveball with mine. Like I would think, you would say, Bo Jackson for Tecmo Bowl. Obviously, he's the one everyone comes to mind. But for me, honestly, it's Mike Vick. And see what Michael Vick did to us here at EA and how we had to. You remember that game, right? And how dominant he was and the playmaker controls and everything you could do with him. You know what the next year was? Ray Lewis on the cover, and it was a revamp of the entire defense because we had to tear that thing down to the studs and build it back up to try to account for how game-breaking Michael Vick was. So that's my answer, is Michael Vick, just insanity of how good he was in that game.
The hit stick, born as a response.
Absolutely. See, there you go. My man knows his history, of course.
Andrew?
Mine's Pablo Sanchez from Backyard Baseball. Absolute GOAT. But
good pull.
No, I can't remember the year when Devin Hester was 100. When that was disgusting. And again, Bears fan growing up. So that meant a lot to me, being able to just kind of dominate with someone who's that fast.
But also never forget John Dowd, the greatest fake player in history when they didn't have Barry Bonds right. So John Dowd from MVP will always go down as another historic guy.
Player 23 from NBA Live back in the day.
Yeah, well, and we can talk about this a little bit later, but now we've got a coach in our conference who I don't believe who's ever been shown in a video game before as well. So, the great anonymous head coach of the Patriots in all those years in Madden, I guess. Which athletes from the 11-year dark lost period of the college football video game do you think would have been the most fun to play with?
I've been thinking about this one too because it really comes down to a lot of times it's dynamic elements of a player. You look at that, the Joe Burrow LSU squad, right, and all those players there, and Justin Jefferson and those guys. I think that team itself, if we would have had them in the game at the time, would have been one of the most fun, things you could run through with that. Just the sheer talent level they had and the star power. Like I think that LSU squad probably would be, and probably Burrow as well, would be up there for me.
I think we'd love it if you guys could bring the moments back and our fans could start with Clemson leading 17-7 in that national championship game. But an incredible offense. And there's been a lot of teams in the ACC as well. I think, folks at Louisville would have enjoyed playing with Lamar Jackson. There's just been, you think about that entire period, we never got to see Trevor Lawrence and Travis Etienne and T. Higgins or any of those folks represented in the digital Death Valley. And it's just, we're glad to be back in the light, but it's hard to think about the dark period where it was lost.
Yeah, Lamar would have been absolutely insane. I mean, that's probably that probably is the answer. If I were to sit back and think about it again and redo it, Lamar, man, that guy just was absolutely just crazy what he could do. But yeah, you think about that run that Clemson had that was never memorialized in a video game. Like that would have been so much fun to go in and have that moment where you could have been taking over and decide when is Trevor Lawrence going to take over for Kelly Bryant, and you could have made that call of when it's going to happen. And so now you're able to do that going forward here in the new world. But yeah, I mean, there are so many great players that were lost to those 11 years. And so that's why a feature like Ultimate Team is an opportunity for us to bring back some of those players who are out of the league or maybe never made the league or even still are active NFL players and to get a chance to play with some of those legends in the game. And so that's kind of a great place for those guys to get another run and have a second life.
Ben, you talked about your history going all the way back. Was it 05 was the first one you worked on?
Correct, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Do you have a favorite installment in the series? I know that's like picking your favorite child, but if you had to pick one, could you do it?
I definitely can. This last one holds a special place in my heart because of being the first one back after 11 years. NCAA 14 holds a special place because it was the last one before it went away. But NCAA 06, for me, that is the one. The soundtrack was just kind of very interesting and it was more of a college radio soundtrack back then.
Yeah.
It was the very first version of what's now Road to Glory, but was then called Race for the Heisman. You had a lot of different things in that. And it was funny because that was the first year of Madden on what was Gen 3 at the time, so 360 and PS3 era. And so the entire studio focus was on that title and working on that. So we were kind of left alone. Like the kids were able to run roughshod, and so we got away with some stuff in that game that we typically wouldn't be able to because the eyes weren't on us in the same way. So yeah, 06 for me, that's the one that just kind of that one hit different than a lot of others.
Yeah, now I'm 15 years into a career and have multiple kids, so my hours have waned considerably. But yeah, High School Ross, if the PS2 could have burned a hole through the disc, 06 is the one for sure. So you actually kind of stole my answer on that. And then this last question will be for all three of you. Who has the best impression of the EA Sports It's in the Game guy?
Ooh.
Can any of you do it?
Man, I mean, I don't want to steal Anthony's thunder because he's just a legend, right? That's just the voice. And it's so funny that people have talked about potentially moving away and doing something different, but you can't lose that tagline. It's so iconic. But yeah, that gravel of EA Sports, it's in the game. Like that's the best I can do, but I'm nowhere near the man.
Yeah, I can't do it, but I love seeing all these videos on like Instagram or TikTok where someone finds him in the wild, and like he's just so synonymous with that slogan, that tagline, that it's just crazy. You get people trying to copy it, but there's nothing like it.
I mean, I'll give it a go. EA Sports, it's in the game.
It helps when you have these mics too, you know? It gives me
a little extra,
on Zoom, but you get like the deep EA Sports. It's in the game.
That's awesome. Chills.
Right. Yeah, that's my excuse. The mic is my reason why I can't do it, you know?
Yeah, we'll blame the laptop. Actually, our guys had some fun with that in the building kind of right after the game was announced. I think Colin Sadler ended up being the winner from our offensive line. So shout out to Colin for doing a great job with that.
EA Sports. It's in the game.
That segment was presented by Darlington Raceway. Be a part of the track's 75th anniversary and the official throwback weekend of NASCAR. Log on to darlingtonraceway.com for your tickets to the track that's too tough to tame. It's fun for everyone. Now, back to Two Right Turns. We want to jump into college football 26, and one of the things that obviously excites us from the Clemson side of things is that the Deluxe Edition, our quarterback, Cade Klubnik, was selected as one of the cover athletes, as well as the representation of the Tiger mascot and the Tiger band on there. What do you all look for in a cover athlete, and what excites you all about having Cade associated with the product?
Yeah, so there's a few things that go into it. Like, one player has to be good. They have to, we have to believe that this person is going to be having a good year. And I think Cade's got a pretty solid rating amongst his peers for this upcoming season. I can't say exactly what that will be yet, but I'm sure when ratings week comes around and just a couple of weeks, you guys will be able to share all of that. But also the marketability of the player, the school, the ability for us to lean into the storylines of that kid, especially with Cade, where it was just, wasn't recruited by his hometown team, came to Clemson, put in the work, and really, truly became a better player. It's really that kind of storyline of like Road to Glory in our game where, he's taken his time, he's put in all of the necessary work, and he's become one of the best at what he does. That's awesome story to tell. Also, we focus on, if guys had amazing seasons last year, or if we really believe in them for this year, there's so many factors that go in. Thankfully, I don't have to be the final say on any of those because I think that would just kill me.
Yeah, I mean, and you look at spend 5 minutes with the guy, and you'll understand why he's a great choice to be on the cover. He's a great representative for Clemson and also for EA Sports now. And you also think about that too of when we make these decisions and start to do these things. There's still a spring transfer portal, and so you want to work with someone who is going to stay home and not go somewhere. And the family at Clemson is as tight knit as they come, and so it was a safe bet that he was not going to go anywhere, and so you could rest assured that you're not going to have any weirdness like back in the day when we put Favre on the cover and he retired and then came back and you had to put out a new cover with him on the Jets. So we didn't want to have any sort of alterations or corrections down the line. So it was a sure thing. So he was a great choice.
Well, and he got to go down to Orlando recently and see the new game and play with some streamers and do some media around that, which I think a lot of folks are jealous that he's had some access to the new game and others perhaps have not. But those are the spoils of being a Deluxe Edition cover boy, I guess. One of the things I wanted to discuss with you all, and this is, I don't know if this is a little bit of a Clemson thing, but every time we get a sunset over Death Valley, everybody loves to remark that the sky is orange and purple, and God has painted a Clemson backdrop for games at Death Valley. And I don't know if you all are able to speak to this at length, but it seems with the beta having come out and being able to see some of the gameplay videos that have, I guess, leaked that way, it seems like the addition of dynamic lighting is coming to 26.
Yeah, and it's coming twofold. So we have the dynamic lighting that will change throughout the course of the game. So if you're starting at 3:30 at Death Valley, by the time you hit that late in the second half, the sun will have set. So you'll see that sun setting throughout the course of the game. But it's also progressing throughout the course of the season if you're playing Dynasty mode. So where the shadows are and where the sun's positioned for a noon game or a 3:30 game in September is different in the real world than where it would be in October or November, and reflecting that properly. So you'll feel like it's a fall, day when you're loading into Dynasty mode and playing a game in that October timeframe versus it always being just bright and sunny, and early in the year type look. So, in both those ways, we were able to dynamically change the weather to make it feel more authentic and more organic throughout the course of the game and the season.
Well, one of the things that I know was one of the biggest additions this year was announced almost in conjunction with the trailer, it seemed like, and that is the addition of coaches this year. And if only we had a character at head coach that we could include that people might want to play with or emulate. Why was that such a priority for this year's iteration?
For us in year one, bringing players into the game was paramount. That's the reason why we're back, is that for the first time ever, we're able to put real players in the game. So that was the focus, and we wanted to make sure we were doing that the right way, getting our rosters filled with players for the first time and kind of getting that pipeline down, because you're going from 0 to 85 players for, at the time, 134 teams, like just a volume play alone, without having a group license to be able to sign. You had to go through every player individually. So that was the focus year one. But we always knew we wanted to come back and get those coaches, because we've never had them either. They were not a part of the old game. So we went to that as our second year here. That's the chance to expand on that and make these coaches a part of the game as well, and the coordinators too. Because I think when people heard we were adding coaches, they're like, "Oh, head coaches, cool. They'll probably be fake for the generics." But we actually went after and got them. So Garrett Riley's there for the offensive coordinator. Tom Allen's there for the defensive coordinator at Clemson. We've got them both in the game. And so if you're playing through, and Dabo's in as well, so we hit all three. And then we hit a very large number of coaches. Over 300 coaches between head coaches and coordinators have signed up. And we still have more that are coming in now that we're going to update later throughout the year. But adding coaches means a lot, because you now have somebody that's a face of the program that's in the game that you can look at. And they see this for what it is. There's marketing of this, of recruiting. You're now going to be in front of millions of kids, and they're going to know your name because you're in the game. But when you're going through and playing, if you're taking over as Clemson and you want to be the head coach, now you've got real offensive coordinators and defensive coordinators with you throughout your journey. Or if you want to start as a coordinator, you can work out under Dabo and then wind up going through the coaching carousel to somewhere else. And so, you're playing with these coaches, but you're competing against them as well. We've got all our playbooks built based on things that are run in real life by these real coaches. So, it's going to feel like you're playing with the tendencies of these coaches in the game. You're going to see, when you're playing through Dynasty mode, the coaching carousel, you're going to see coaches you recognize moving around the country to new jobs. And it just kind of ties you into the world of college football even more, because now those aren't just fake names and fake people moving around. That's really this coach, and they're really going to this job. And it just adds that immersion and making it feel like this is a real game that you're playing. And you've got all these coach stats. We added all the historical coach stats for everybody. So Dabo's all-time win record is in there, and his record against rivals, and number of top 5 classes and everything else that he's done that we track is there historically. And so now you have something to compete against versus every coach starting out at zeros when you're starting out at Dynasty. So you're trying to move up the career ladder against these other coaches as well. So it just adds so much more to the game than we've ever had before.
Yeah, I think Ben hit that so well, but I think it really just comes down to authenticity, right? And what was the next most logical step to be as authentic as possible? And it is getting coaches in. So we're super excited about how many coaches have signed up, coaches, coordinators, everyone. And I think schools are excited. I think players are excited. I think even players on the team are kind of excited. They finally get to see their, someone might view their coach as a little bit of a older, kind of grumpier guy who there's no way he'd be doing video games, but you get to mess around with him as the coach in your game. But you also get those hypotheticals of what would happen if this coach went here, or this coach did that. I think it's super cool, but just being, again, as authentic as possible and really trying to immerse people in that college football experience is why it's so important.
When y'all mentioned chasing authenticity, and I think y'all have both the benefit but also the unenviable task of trying to make a game for both college football fans and gamers, and the overlap of how demanding and discerning those two groups can be about their respective products, much less when you put them together, I imagine is a very high bar to reach. How does that help guide you all in trying to make such an authentic experience?
I'll tell you one thing, we don't get to rest at all, which is fine though. That's great, because this sport is always changing. I think that's one thing I love about this sport. Sometimes for the good, but also too it can be some changes that maybe you're not a huge fan of if you've been a fan of the sport as long as I have. But there's 150 years of history, and there are certain things that have happened for 150 years, and those are easy to get in there and have replicate and build in. But with the ever-changing pieces, it always keeps us on our toes of like I was saying with the CFP. What's it going to be next year? We're going to have to build in, if it changes, how those things work. And there's expectations built by fans. If a Clemson fan's picking up the game, they have expectations of how Clemson's represented. And if we're missing that mark, they're going to let us know, which is great. I love that. I would hate to have the apathy of fans being like, they got it wrong, but they're not going to fix it. Like, no, they get after us because they know we care and we're going to go in and make those adjustments. What I love about this sport too is it's not just what have you given for me, but if you gave my rival something, you better do me right too. So if we added something for South Carolina, we know for sure that Clemson fans are going to be like, okay, cool. I'm glad you did that, but what about this, this, and this? And so now they've got their list of things that they want to see to come back and forth. So it's that rivalry that we always have with the fans that they have against each other, and they funnel that through us. But yeah, no, you're not wrong in by saying you have two very opinionated groups there between gamers and sports fans. And when you combine those two, you get some folks who are very passionate about their responses of what they want to see in the game. And so, we work through everything we can and try to make the most updates we can within a year, and through post-launch updates as well. But that's the beauty of the sport, is it's always changing and it's always evolving. And so it just gives us endless things to keep doing.
I think we talked a little bit about the players being excited about the game, but in my role, getting to see so much social conversation, social traffic, just the amount of excitement from our fans talking about the game, pulling game clips from their games and posting it online. It was really cool to see just how immersed and how much our Clemson fans were embracing the game and then going forward with it.
Yeah, y'all hear about it. We hear about it too. I think the great thing is I think everybody feels invested in it. The folks who are literally making it, and y'all have your hands on the game, obviously. We are very specifically concerned about the Clemson experience in the game. It seems like everyone feels like they own some kind of small piece of it, whether that's just Clemson fans or fans all across the country. And
that's absolutely the way that we want it. Like this is your game. We're just the people that are in charge of making it, but this is your game. And so that's how we treat this every day of coming in. Like there aren't features that we build for our own personal satisfaction. We're building features because we know what the fans are looking for, that we want to play as well, because we're just as much fans of this game as anybody else. So that's absolutely the relationship that we love to have, is keep sending us what you want to see in the game and keep sending us what we didn't get right. And we're going to keep going to work and trying to make it better and better.
Well, if we didn't all have our own actual day jobs to do, I could sit here and pepper y'all with questions for the next 3 hours, or maybe all the way up until launch. But I want to lay out a little bit and just give y'all the floor. What do y'all want Clemson fans, college football fans, and college football 26 fans to know about this game that comes out in July?
This is a companion piece to the sport. That's the way I look at this game as well. You're going to be a smarter fan by playing this game. You're going to know so much more about where players are and who players are by playing this game. With this ever-evolving world of college football and roster turnover, you might not know where players went to because of the portal changes. But start playing this game once it comes out, and when the season rolls around, you're going to know where people are at. You're going to understand the sport in a different way than you have before because of how much you are able to kind of dive in and learn about the sport. So that's kind of my piece for it. It's a wonderful companion piece when you're going through. You might be a Clemson fan, and I want you to feel like, man, you've really done me right. Everything I've ever wanted to see in Clemson's here. But then you might also start a dynasty with ECU, or you might start a dynasty with Rice because they're running the option this year, and that's a whole different look. And you go in there, and now you learn about them too. And now you become a fan, maybe a secondary or tertiary fan of them. But you might wind up watching a game on a Saturday because you played with a team in our game. And I think that's one of those things I always love, is making fans better and more knowledgeable of the sport, but also too having a fun time playing the game and kind of immersing yourself in college football and saying, well, I want to run Clemson this way. This is how I'm going to take the program in my new direction. And we're going to install this new offense, and we're going to run this kind of defense, and we're going to start getting the players in to build that way. You can build your own fantasy of what you want your college football world to be. And I think that's my favorite part about the game.
Yeah, I think for me, it comes down to a couple of things. Like, one is storytelling, and two is discovery. The amount of stories that we're able to tell with 11,000 players in the game, it's kind of endless. Well, really, it's like 11,000 stories, but you can tell all of these stories of guys they're on your roster. they've continued to improve throughout the year. Their rating has gone up. Like that is a whole storyline that is not just, important for day one of launch, but it's a season long narrative. You can tell stories about your program, like how all of these different traditions happen. It's the opportunity for people to say, like, yeah, Clemson does get off of the bus with pads on. This is something that we really do. Or you find out about, just this random school's weird tradition, but it's so cool because it's that school. And that's that discovery piece, right? Where it's like, I went in and I had no idea that ECU ran out of a skull tunnel. Like, that's awesome. That is a really cool thing. Or, Arizona's got their turnover sword. Like, that's a really fun thing, and that I probably wouldn't have seen if they weren't on like a nationally televised game. So it's that opportunity for a person to find their, like Ben said, secondary, tertiary school. Like, it's that opportunity for you to become, or any other school to become, a person's second favorite school, which isn't really a bad thing, right? It's like, I've got my home team, but I love this team too. And I found out about them because of the game. And I think we hear a lot of those stories. Not only just last year, I think we'll continue to hear them this year. And it's schools' opportunities to make those secondary fans out of, people across the country, which I don't think really would be possible if they're only relying on, like national broadcasted games.
Yeah, well, we appreciate you all telling that story here at Clemson, but also our 135 counterparts in the FBS. It's so good to have this game back. It feels like, for those of us who played it growing up, it feels like a piece of us that was missing has been put back. And Ben, I know you feel that way as well. Y'all have been so good and gracious with your time. We want to sell some games, man. Like, when should people be on the lookout for this?
July 7th is when early access starts for people who purchase the deluxe version of the game. This is my plug for the MVP bundle. You can get deluxe version of Madden, deluxe version of college. You get it's the best value that you're going to be able to get. But you can also start playing the standard version of the game starting on the 10th of July. But if you want Cade on the cover, you need to get the deluxe version.
Good plug right there.
Good plug.
Ben, Andrew, Matt, thank all three of you so much for your time, for the dedication and effort that goes into Clemson's representation in this game. And just, as I mentioned earlier, the continued relationship, partnership, and friendship we have with EA Sports means a lot to those of us here at Clemson and those of us passionate about that game. Ben, I want to congratulate you. I believe you are the first Seminole to make an appearance on Two Right Turns, a Clemson football podcast. So we are breaking a little bit of ground here in the spirit of collegiality among ACC friends.
I appreciate you bringing me in. I don't really have a leg to stand on right now, given where the program is and what we've been doing recently. But, this has always been a fun rivalry that we've had together. And I look forward to seeing where Florida State and Clemson go in the future.
Yeah, and a lot of mutual respect of two great football programs there and two great histories. So thank you all so much. That's going to wrap us up from Studio C at the Clemson Athletics Branding Institute. Make sure to like and subscribe and stay tuned for the next episode.